Hey, it is January 6th, 2014, and I haven't even thought about making a video journal in a long time. But today I was in study. Today is Monday, and it's the day that all the kids should be going back to school, but we got 2 extra days off because of they're expecting like an Arctic blast or whatever to come through. Poor weather, basically. There ended up being no snow. It's just cold, and so we're all off, which is kind of crazy, but it's cool to have a day off. So lately I've been kind of in like one of my rut type of things where I spend all day just kind of laying around. I start to feel like terrible, and I really didn't want to spend today like that. And I woke up just kind of, I have been like praying and trying to make more of a habit of going to God. And I've been like yesterday I went, okay, so there's a lot of things. On Christmas was pretty good. I learned a lot. I talked to my dad on Christmas Eve, just called him because I was missing him, wanted to talk to him. And I am currently like looking for a beach house or whatever for us to rent this summer for all of us to get together. Nakia and Shaheem and her kids, Kevin's coming in town, my dad and me. And that's going to be exciting. This year I plan to just kind of like pursue a relationship with him. But to really make sure that I'm going through God as I do that, so that I don't put any of my identity or expectations into my dad and that relationship, but more just to be used by God and to like build those bridges. When I was home, my mom had to work some of those days, and I try to really like spend that time just kind of like going before God. And one of the things is that I was reading just kind of where I was in the New Testament. I think it was Luke, and it was just kind of those same simple scriptures that you always hear and you always know. But I was just kind of like crying out to God, and I had really been dealing with the fact that I was missing having a family. And I'm talking to Tamika, and she's getting together with her twin, and like all her siblings are all getting together, and it's just like a time of family. And I was kind of just like missing that, and almost like envying what other people had at that time of year. That I was there with my mom, but it's like the rest of my family was missing. And I really, really wanted that. And I was just praying and telling God, like, I want a family. Like, I want my own family. I want a husband. I want to have kids. I want to have my own family. And I got into the Word, and I was reading in Luke just the same parable about the master. And he gave some of his fortune to each of his servants. And he left, and he told them to invest it. And when he came back, he asked them, like, what did you do with my money, and how much money did you get from it? And then there was the one guy who just had one. He had that same coin that he had went and he buried it, and then he came back and he brought the same coin. He was like, I was scared, I didn't want to lose it, and so I just kept it. And the master took it away and gave it to the man who had invested and who had made the most of what he had. And God, it said, to he who is faithful with little, much will be given to him. And it really spoke to me at that time, because it was like I was crying over what I wanted, and I wanted this big family. It was like God was telling me, be faithful with what you have. Be faithful to the family that you have. Don't say, well, I have this left, and so I'm going to go and bury that, and I'm not going to deal with that because I don't want to be hurt, and I don't want to pursue, and I don't want to invest what you've given me because I'm afraid I'm going to be hurt. So let me just bury that to the side. Let me just leave what I have with my dad right there. Let me just leave what I have with my brother or with my sister or whoever right there. I wanted to, I feel like God was telling me, like, invest. And so that same day I called my dad just to kind of talk to him. And this year I just plan on like really seeking God, but like, investing in relationship with him and just making the most of the family that I have. So that was that. New Year's Eve, I went to church at the Gathering Oasis, which is Heather and Cornelius Lindsay's church. I follow Heather Lindsay on Instagram, and so I went to that church. I've been feeling like kind of called to just go and check it out, and I don't know if I was just like curious or what. So I went, it was okay, and then I felt like I should go back on Sunday, and so I went on Sunday, and it was really good. Like, I felt God in the place, and I felt like, he was speaking directly to what I had been praying about. So after church, I kind of like stopped her and talked to her, and I started crying. I just felt so stupid. Like, I felt like stupid. So I left not feeling too good. And so I just, like, it was really on my mind. Like, man, I felt so stupid, blah, blah, blah. And God just started really because before I went to the church, I felt like I needed to take, like, a social media fast. Like, it was hard for me to take the church seriously because I had seen it on Instagram. I felt like I kind of knew them and I had seen those people before. It was, like, a weird thing for me. Like, I couldn't really handle it. So I just kind of, like, stepped away from social media for a few days, and then I went to church. And as I was struggling with that, I felt like, you know, God, I feel like you're telling me that you want me to go there and that you're going to use me there. But it was like, why couldn't I connect? And I felt like God was saying, you know, who are you there for, first of all? You know, are you there to build relationships with her and with whoever else? Or are you there for me? Because I just want you to be there for me. And I'm not going to allow any of those relationships unless you're there for me. Allow me to move. And I think that that's something that is very real in every area of my life, that I sometimes or very often put people in the place of God. And I'm more focused on building relationships with them and making something with them than I am making something with him. And I don't want to live that way anymore. Like, I don't. I want to be so content with God that I don't want anything else. And I don't want to get into any type of relationship like that where I'm going to be so focused on that person and not yet be content with God and focus where I need to be focused. So that's a goal. January 19th, I'm going to be starting a second online Bible study with Proverbs 31. It's another Lisa TerKeurst book. I have been reading the Renee Swope book, The Confident Heart. I haven't been as consistent, but I've been, like, picking it up and kind of reading through it as well, which I missed that. Bible study was right after the When Women Say Yes to God study, and I was like, oh, I'm not going to do that one. I'll take a break, but I should have, because that book would have been so on time for what I needed, and I saw their Facebook posts and stuff, so I picked up the book. I also have the Made to Crave, so I'm going to do the Made to Crave, and I'm just praying that God just, like, really burns in me, like, a new desire for him and a new craving for him. What else? So, the other thing, when I was home, my mom gave me some CDs of Malou, Auntie Cheryl's old friend who passed away, but she was just a prophet. I mean, like, she was a teacher, a really good teacher. And so she has some teachings on CD that my mom gave me to listen to, and they are called Walk Through the Bible or something like that. And so I've just kind of been listening to those, and I was listening to them in the car at first, which was kind of fun, but then, like, I wanted to be able to, like, look up the scriptures and really get focused in it, and so I did. I brought them in and I put them on my computer so that I could listen to them here and, like, kind of spend that time in Bible study to really spend some time with God. And today I listened to them, to lesson number 4, and it's all about how our power comes through dying to ourselves and living for God. Being, you know, reborn and resurrected in Christ. And I think that was definitely a word for me. It's definitely something that I need to learn. Like, I literally was, like, praying, like, God, teach me how to die to myself. And I had, like, the perfect example. I had, like, this joke about Tamika's brother, which something told me not to tell her, and I called and she didn't answer, and so I got a phone. I was like, okay, God, you saved me from that. She called me right back, and instead of, like, remembering, I just said, okay, God is telling me not to say it, I said it and it offended her. And so I feel really bad about it, but it was like, that was one of those things where I should have died to myself and listened to God. That's a huge process for me, but it was all about, like, you need to, in order to do, you have to be. So, like, it's not about getting to God, like, becoming a Christian, becoming what God wants. You're not going to get that through following these laws. And, like, you know, for me, it's like, well, okay, everybody says that you need to tithe. Okay, everybody says you need to spend time in the morning with God. Okay, everybody says, and it's not about that. It's about me truly, like, how do I get to know somebody? Like, using those same things to get to know Christ and to spend that time when he allows. And yeah, to sacrifice and to make sure that I'm spending that time, but not making it like, okay, well, I woke up in the morning and I did my devotion, so now I got God out of the way, now I can move on with my life. But making it more of like a lifestyle of the way that I live for God. Which is going to be a huge change for me. And I think the hardest thing for me is just like, oh, how do you react with people who are so used to you making jokes and so used to you being this person and being that person and whatever. But it's dying to yourself and not caring. And like, if I lose those friends, I lose those friends. But what's worth it to me? Is it God or is it not? And really making that decision and realizing that, like, I have to make that decision and I have to answer to that. The word was really, really good. Another thing they said was like, the places that I'm hardest on others are the places where I'm under law. Because he kind of like explained it like, you know, if you're constantly under a law and you're putting yourself under a law, like you need to do this in order to be a Christian, you need to do that in order to be a Christian. It reminds me of like Aaliyah and like relationship wise and how I put myself in this place where it's like, well, you're supposed to do this and you're supposed to do that and you're supposed to do that. And I was so hard on her when she was trying to just like build her relationship. And it was because I wasn't just being, like, I was trying so hard and I was doing so much that it was hard for me to just accept people, you know, as they were. And so, not only, I think that what that did for me is like, it kind of helps me to have a different way to kind of identify where are the areas where I'm struggling, where are the areas that I'm far from God and not receiving God's grace. Those are the places where I keep seeing myself be critical about other people. And so instead of, well, I'm just not going to be critical, I'm not going to be being able to look at those places and saying, I'm being critical because I'm under law, let me give this place to God. And as God gives me grace, I'll be able to give other people grace. Instead of trying to just do out of my own ability, being able to say, this is an area that I need to give to God and allow God to kind of flow through me to fix that. It's the opposite of what I typically do. And I think that what I typically do isn't working. So the opposite of what I typically do is probably something that I need to try. The whole thing was about just kind of showing examples of the cross life. And the cross life is dying to ourselves in order to be resurrected in Christ in power, and whether or not you're willing to die to yourself. They gave a lot of verses, and they gave 2 Corinthians 1:9, which 2 Corinthians 1:8 is Paul just saying to the Corinthians, like, I want to let you know what's going on with us. You know, we went to Asia and we went through some crazy struggles, and it was more struggles than we could even endure, and we expected to die in ourselves, and so it taught us to just rely on God. So it was kind of like we got to the point where we couldn't even take it anymore, and we just expected to die. So instead we relied fully on God, and God brought us through that, and he protected us, and God's going to protect us again. And it was like in those places where it's like, God, I cannot do this, being able to just fully rely on God and allow God to show his own glory and his own ability. I love that. And the other thing was also in 2 Corinthians, and it was 4:7. It was 4:7 through 11, but then I kept reading, and it's about 4:7 is about how God, it says, 4:6 says, for God, we said, who said, let there be light in the darkness, has made this light shine in our hearts so that we know the glory of God that is seen in the face of Jesus Christ. And it said, we now have this light shining in our hearts, but we ourselves are like fragile clay jars containing this great treasure. This makes it clear that our great power is from God and not from ourselves. That, like, we have this intense power inside of us, but we're nothing. Like, we're just fragile clay jars that, like, anything could break me. And if I'm not broken, the fact that I'm pressed on every side, pressed down from the top, and I haven't been crushed and I haven't been destroyed, only says that, like, there is a power that is above and beyond what I can even imagine living inside of me, that's holding me and holding those walls from coming tumbling in. And, you know, that's what the following verses are. You know, we're pressed on every side with troubles. We're perplexed but not driven to despair. We're hunted down but never abandoned by God. We get knocked down but we are not destroyed. Through suffering, our bodies continue to share in the death of Jesus. It goes on to say in verse 16, that is why we never give up. Though our bodies are dying, our spirits are being renewed every day. For our present troubles are small and won't last very long, yet they produce for us a glory that vastly outweighs them and will last forever. Verse 18 was amazing. It says, so we don't look at the troubles we can see now, rather we fix our gaze on things that cannot be seen. For the things we see now will soon be gone, but the things we cannot see will last forever. And so I think my prayer today is just, you know, God, help me to know what it is that I can't see. You know, help me to fix my eyes on those things I can't see. Help me to know you so well that, like, my eyes then become fixed on you, who I can't see, that become fixed on the fact that, like, one day I'm going to sit beside Jesus, that I'm going to hold hands with him and know him and be in heaven and be able to just, like, to gaze on Jesus and to gaze on him and to live in, like, magnificent paradise and to gaze on God and really know that, like, all of this was not for naught. Like, all of this struggle and all of this, like, who am I in this identity, like, crisis, that God loved me enough to allow me to go through this when it was just me and him, that one day, you know, I'll be whole in him, that I can walk into something else with someone else. But it was really good scriptures, and that's just where my prayer is. And that's where my life is right now. And, you know, the same things with work. And, like, those struggles won't last always. And the things that I'm struggling with now are going to pass. But it's just knowing and being able to really focus on what it is that will come next. Another thing she talked about is, like, you know, your healing and your freedom comes from praying for those who have hurt you. And I thought about Amy a lot, and, like, you know, maybe I do need to get to know her a little bit better, or just, you know, pay more attention instead of trying to find the things that are wrong with her, starting to find the things where I could be praying for her and just kind of lifting her up to God, and not, you know, just softening my heart towards her and towards everybody in that matter. That's it. But, my school loans are going into repayment, so that's something that I'm giving to God, and I'll probably need to start looking for a part-time job, and so that's that. I'm planning to do more videos when I do the online Bible study, so hopefully all that works out. Toodles.